as bad investments, when NBA stars became venture capitalists' worst nightmare. Let's start with the financial disaster that's claimed more NBA fortunes than any other catastrophic investments. While fans see the glamorous lifestyle and assume these players are set for life, the reality is that sudden wealth combined with poor financial education creates the perfect storm for investment disasters that can wipe out generational wealth in a matter of years. Tim Duncan, one of the most fundamentally sound players in NBA history, lost over $20 million to his financial advisor Charles Banks. Banks convinced Duncan to invest in sports merchandise companies, a rum business, and cosmetics ventures that were either failing or completely fraudulent. The man who never made a bad decision on the basketball court trusted the wrong person with his life savings and ended up in a decade-long legal battle just to recover a fraction of his money. But Duncan's story pales in comparison to what happened to Scottie Pippen. Despite earning over $100 million during his playing career, Pippen lost approximately $27 million in a single real estate investment gone wrong. His financial advisor convinced him to invest in a luxury condominium project that never materialized. The advisor pocketed the money, left Pippen holding worthless contracts, and disappeared into the legal system where recovery became nearly impossible. The psychology behind these disasters is fascinating. NBA players often come from backgrounds where no one in their family has ever managed serious wealth. When you go from food stamps to $20 million contracts, you don't automatically develop the financial literacy to evaluate complex investment opportunities. Add in advisors who see athletes as easy targets, and you get a recipe for financial destruction. Lifestyle inflation, when $50 million isn't enough to keep up. But bad investments aren't the only wealth destroyer in the NBA. Sometimes the money disappears one private jet flight, one custom jewelry purchase, and one $50,000 dinner at a time. Lifestyle inflation has turned multi-millionaire athletes into broke ex-players faster than any stock market crash ever could. Antoine Walker earned over $100 million during his NBA career, but filed for bankruptcy just 2 years after retirement. How do you blow through 9 figures? Walker's downfall was a combination of gambling, real estate speculation, and maintaining a lifestyle that required spending $10,000 per day just to break even. Private jets for every trip, entourages of 20 plus people, custom jewelry collections worth millions. It all adds up when you're trying to live like a billionaire on a millionaire's budget. The math is brutally simple. After taxes, agent fees, and other deductions, that $20 million contract becomes about $10 million in actual take-home pay. Spread that over a 15-year career, and you're looking at real income that's closer to what a successful doctor makes. But doctors don't buy $200,000 cars or support extended families of 30 people. Allen Iverson's story perfectly illustrates how lifestyle inflation destroys wealth. Despite earning over $200 million in salary and endorsements, Iverson was reportedly broke by 2012. His monthly expenses included $10,000 for groceries, $10,000 for restaurants and entertainment, plus massive spending on cars, jewelry, and supporting dozens of family members and friends. When the paycheck stopped, the expenses didn't. What makes lifestyle inflation so dangerous is that it's progressive and addictive. Start with a $100,000 car, then you need a $200,000 car to feel successful. Buy a $2 million house, then you need a $5 million house in a better neighborhood. Each upgrade becomes the new baseline, and stepping back feels like failure. Divorce settlements. When love costs everything you've ever earned. While lifestyle inflation bleeds money slowly, divorce settlements can wipe out decades of earnings in a single court ruling. Community property laws don't care if you earned $150 million playing basketball. If you're married in California when you earned it, half of that fortune legally belongs to your spouse. Michael Jordan's divorce from Juanita Vanoy cost him approximately $168 million, making it one of the most expensive celebrity divorces in history. Jordan, who earned roughly $90 million during his playing career, had to hand over assets worth nearly double his entire NBA salary. The settlement included cash, real estate, and ongoing alimony payments that continued for years after the divorce was finalized. But Jordan could afford it because of his Nike deal and business ventures. Players without external income streams aren't so lucky. When Shaquille O'Neal divorced Shawnee Nelson, the settlement reportedly cost him over $100 million in assets and ongoing support payments. That's more than many players earn in their entire careers, gone in a single legal proceeding. The brutal mathematics of NBA divorces go beyond just splitting assets. Prenups often get thrown out when judges determine they were signed under duress or without proper legal representation. Future earnings get factored into alimony calculations, meaning players can owe money they haven't even earned yet. And child support payments are calculated based on peak earning years, not retirement income. Kenny Anderson went through multiple divorces that collectively cost him millions in settlements and ongoing support payments. Despite earning over $60 million during his career, Anderson was forced to sell his championship ring and other memorabilia just to meet his financial obligations. Each divorce reset his financial situation, forcing him to start over while still paying for previous relationships. Supporting extended networks. When success becomes everyone's responsibility. The transition from divorce costs to family obligations reveals another wealth destroyer that's uniquely devastating for NBA players. The expectation to financially support extended networks of family and friends. Unlike other high earners who build wealth gradually, NBA players often go from poverty to prosperity overnight, creating instant financial obligations that can drain millions annually. Latrell Sprewell famously turned down a $21 million contract extension, saying he had a family to feed. While fans mocked the comment, Sprewell was actually highlighting a real issue: the financial pressure NBA players face to support not just their immediate family, but cousins, aunts, uncles, childhood friends, and entire communities that help them reach the league. The average NBA player supports 15 to 20 family members financially, according to multiple player surveys. That means monthly expenses of $50,000, $100,000 just for family support before they pay their own bills. When Derrick Rose was asked about his massive Adidas contract, he explained that the money wasn't just for him. It was for his mother, brothers, cousins, and dozens of others who had sacrificed for his success. Jalen Rose has spoken openly about how players become the bank for their entire extended network. Rent payments for family members, college tuition for cousins, medical bills for grandparents, business investments for friends. It never stops. Saying no feels like betraying the people who believed in you before you made it, but saying yes can destroy your financial future. The emotional manipulation is real and devastating. Family members who invested time and money in a player's development feel entitled to financial returns. Friends who provided support during difficult times expect ongoing assistance. Communities that celebrated a local kid making it to the NBA assume they'll share in the prosperity. The guilt of having millions while people you care about struggle creates financial obligations that extend far beyond typical family responsibilities. Tax problems when the IRS becomes your biggest opponent. While family obligations drain money consistently, tax problems can create sudden, catastrophic financial emergencies that force players into bankruptcy court. The combination of high-income tax brackets, multi-state filing requirements, and poor financial management has created tax disasters that have destroyed more NBA careers than injuries ever could. Richard Jefferson owed over $5.3 million in unpaid taxes to multiple states and the federal government. The problem started when Jefferson's financial team failed to properly set aside money for tax obligations and escalated when penalties and interest began compounding. What started as a manageable tax bill became a financial emergency that required Jefferson to sell assets and restructure his entire financial life. The complexity of NBA tax obligations is staggering. Players pay taxes in every state where they play games, creating filing requirements in dozens of jurisdictions with different rules and rates. A player for the Miami Heat, no state income tax in Florida, still pays California taxes for games in Los Angeles, New York taxes for games in New York, and federal taxes on all income. Managing these obligations requires sophisticated accounting that many players don't invest in until it's too late. Deferred compensation creates even bigger tax nightmares. When teams defer salary payments to help with salary cap management, players often forget that they'll owe taxes on that money when it's eventually paid, potentially at much higher tax rates if their income has increased or tax laws have changed. Players who agreed to deferred compensation in 2010 found themselves owing massive tax bills in 2020. Long after their playing careers ended, the psychological aspect makes tax problems worse. When you're earning $15 million annually, setting aside $6 to $8 million for taxes feels impossible. Players see the gross income, not the net income, and spend accordingly. When tax time arrives, the money that should have been saved for the IRS has already been spent on lifestyle expenses, investments, and family obligations. Agent and advisor fraud. When the people you trust cost you everything. Tax problems often stem from broader issues with financial management, which brings us to one of the most heartbreaking categories of NBA financial disasters: fraud committed by the very people players trusted to protect their wealth. Agent and advisor fraud has cost NBA players hundreds of millions of dollars, often targeting the players who can least afford the losses. Tank Black, a prominent NBA agent, stole approximately $15 million from clients, including Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Vince Carter, and Ricky Davis. Black used his clients' money to fund a lavish lifestyle while providing falsified financial statements that made their accounts appear healthy. When the fraud was discovered, Black had already spent most of the money, leaving his clients with massive losses and no realistic hope of recovery. The structure of agent relationships makes fraud particularly devastating. Agents often have power of attorney over player finances, giving them the legal authority to make investments, pay bills, and manage accounts without oversight. This arrangement is supposed to free players to focus on basketball, but it creates opportunities for massive theft that can continue for years before being discovered. William Tank Black's fraud scheme involved creating fake investment opportunities and using new client money to pay returns to existing clients, essentially a Ponzi scheme targeting professional athletes. Black convinced players that he was generating massive returns through exclusive investment opportunities, when in reality he was simply stealing their money to fund his own lifestyle and pay earlier investors. The emotional damage often exceeds the financial damage. Players who grew up in poverty and trusted agents to secure their financial future feel doubly betrayed when they discover the theft. Many players never fully recover psychologically from agent fraud, becoming either overly conservative with future investments or developing trust issues that prevent them from working with legitimate financial professionals. Gambling addictions. When competitive drive becomes self-destruction. The same competitive drive that makes players elite athletes can become their financial downfall when channeled into gambling. NBA players, accustomed to being the best at everything they attempt, often assume they can beat the odds in casinos and sportsbooks, an assumption that has cost several players their entire fortunes. Charles Barkley has admitted to losing approximately $30 million gambling over his lifetime, including a particularly devastating stretch where he lost $2.5 million in a single 6-hour blackjack session. Barkley's gambling wasn't recreational. It was compulsive behavior fueled by the same competitive instincts that made him a Hall of Fame player. He couldn't accept losing, so he kept betting bigger amounts trying to win back previous losses. The psychology of gambling addiction among elite athletes is particularly dangerous. Players who have dominated every competition they've entered struggle to accept that casino games are designed to be unbeatable. The same mentality that makes them believe they can win NBA championships makes them believe they can beat the house edge through skill and determination. John Daly, although a golfer rather than a basketball player, provides insight into how gambling addiction affects athletes. Daly lost an estimated $50 to $60 million gambling, often betting $500,000 on a single hand of cards. The amounts NBA players can afford to lose make their gambling even more dangerous. A $100,000 bet feels reasonable when you're earning $20 million annually, but those bets add up quickly. The accessibility of gambling makes the problem worse. High roller casino hosts actively recruit professional athletes, offering free flights, luxury accommodations, and other perks to get them to the tables. Online gambling makes it possible to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars without leaving home. The combination of easy access and unlimited credit creates perfect conditions for financial destruction. Business ventures gone wrong when athletes become entrepreneurs. The transition from gambling losses to business failures reveals how NBA players often compound their financial problems by trying to replace lost income through entrepreneurship. While some players successfully transition into business, many more have lost millions by investing in ventures they didn't understand or industries where their basketball success provided no advantage. Vin Baker, who earned over $100 million during his NBA career, lost most of his fortune through a series of failed business ventures including restaurants, real estate developments, and a record label. Baker's restaurant chain, which he believed would leverage his popularity into profits, instead became a money pit that consumed millions in startup costs and operating losses before eventually closing. The restaurant business has been particularly devastating for NBA players. Restaurants require sophisticated operational knowledge, thin profit margins, and hands-on management that retired players often can't provide. Penny Hardaway lost millions on restaurant investments. Jason Caffey's restaurant ventures contributed to his financial problems. The combination of high startup costs, complex operations, and fierce competition makes restaurants a wealth destroyer for athletes who assume their fame will guarantee success. Real estate development has been equally dangerous. Players see the massive profits that successful developers earn and assume they can replicate that success without understanding the complexity of construction, permitting, financing, and market timing. Scottie Pippen's $27 million real estate loss wasn't unique. Dozens of players have lost millions on development projects that never materialized, or real estate investments made at market peaks. The entertainment industry offers another cautionary tale. Players who invest in record labels, movie production, or talent management often discover that success in entertainment requires completely different skills than success in basketball. Master P successfully transitioned from music to sports management, but for every Master P, there are dozens of players who lost millions trying to break into entertainment without understanding the industry. Track deferrals and salary cap manipulation. When future money becomes present problem. The complex world of deferred contracts and salary cap manipulation that has left several players in unexpected financial binds. While these arrangements seem beneficial on paper, they've created long-term financial obligations that have haunted players decades after their retirement. Bobby Bonilla's contract with the New York Mets has become legendary for all the wrong reasons. When the Mets released Bonilla in 2000, they owed him $5.9 million. Instead of paying immediately, they negotiated a deal to pay him $1.19 million annually for 25 years starting in 2011 with 8% annual interest. What seemed like a smart move for the Mets, they thought they could earn more than 8% investing the money, became a financial albatross when their returns didn't materialize. For Bonilla, what looked like guaranteed income became a cautionary tale about the risks of deferred compensation. The NBA has seen similar situations with deferred salary arrangements. Players agree to take less money up front in exchange for larger payments later, often to help teams manage salary cap constraints. These arrangements work perfectly when teams remain financially stable, but they become disasters when franchises face financial difficulties or ownership changes. Ken Griffey Jr.'s deferred compensation with the Cincinnati Reds resulted in the team paying him $359 million annually through 2024, long after his retirement. While Griffey's arrangement worked out, other players haven't been as fortunate. Deferred contracts often include clauses that void payments if teams declare bankruptcy or face severe financial distress, leaving players as unsecured creditors fighting for pennies on the dollar. The tax implications of deferred compensation create additional complexity. Players who agreed to deferrals when tax rates were lower often find themselves paying higher tax rates when the money is eventually distributed. A player who deferred $10 million in 2010 expecting to pay 35% taxes might find themselves paying 39.6% when the money is distributed in 2025, effectively losing hundreds of thousands to tax rate changes they couldn't predict. What makes deferred compensation particularly dangerous is the false sense of security it creates. Players assume these payments are guaranteed, but they're actually unsecured debt obligations that rank below secured creditors if teams face financial difficulties. The guaranteed money isn't actually guaranteed at all. It's a promise from an organization that might not exist in the same form when payment comes due. International tax complications. When global basketball creates global problems. As the NBA has become increasingly international, players face complex tax situations that extend far beyond US borders. International players often maintain tax residency in their home countries while earning income in the United States, creating double taxation scenarios that can consume unexpected portions of their earnings. Dirk Nowitzki's tax situation illustrates the complexity international players face. As a German citizen playing in Texas, no state income tax, Nowitzki still owed German taxes on his NBA earnings. Germany's tax treaty with the United States provides some relief, but the highest earners still face significant tax obligations in both countries. The administrative costs alone, hiring tax professionals in multiple countries, maintaining compliance with different filing requirements, managing currency exchanges can consume hundreds of thousands annually. Spanish players like Pau Gasol and Marc Gasol face similar challenges, owing Spanish taxes on NBA earnings while also dealing with US federal and state obligations. Spain's tax rates on high earners can exceed 45%, and treaty provisions don't always eliminate double taxation completely. Players often find themselves paying effective tax rates exceeding 60% when multiple jurisdictions claim taxing rights on the same income. The currency exchange risk adds another layer of complexity. International players who maintain financial obligations in their home countries must convert US dollars to local currencies for tax payments, property expenses, and family support. Currency fluctuations can cost players hundreds of thousands annually. A player owing $2 million in European taxes might pay $2.2 million when the dollar is strong, or $2.8 million when the dollar weakens. Brexit created additional complications for European players. British players who previously enjoyed EU tax benefits found themselves subject to new tax obligations and lost access to favorable treaty provisions. Players with investments or property in the UK faced unexpected tax consequences as rules changed, often requiring expensive restructuring to avoid punitive tax treatment. Equipment and endorsement deal disasters. When signature shoes become financial quicksand. While most coverage focuses on players' salaries, endorsement deals and equipment contracts have created their own category of financial disasters. These agreements often include complex performance clauses, exclusivity requirements, and penalty provisions that can cost players millions when things go wrong. Stephon Marbury's $15 million deal with Antoine seemed like a financial windfall until the company's financial problems created payment delays and eventually bankruptcy. When Antoine couldn't meet its obligations, Marbury lost not only future endorsement payments but also the exclusivity restrictions that prevented him from signing with other brands. The legal battles to recover owed money consumed years and significant legal fees, with Marbury ultimately recovering only a fraction of the promised payments. Latrell Sprewell's Converse deal included performance bonuses tied to team success and individual achievements. When personal controversies made Sprewell unmarketable, Converse invoked morality clauses to terminate the contract and demand repayment of advance bonuses. The financial impact extended beyond lost future earnings. Sprewell owed money back to the company, creating immediate cash flow problems during a period when his NBA earnings were also in jeopardy. The complexity of modern endorsement deals creates opportunities for financial disasters that players rarely anticipate. Exclusivity clauses can prevent players from capitalizing on opportunities with competing brands. Performance requirements can void entire contracts if players suffer injuries or team performance declines. Social media clauses give companies broad authority to terminate deals based on player behavior online. Kevin Durant's initial Nike deal included restrictive clauses that prevented him from launching his own brand or partnering with certain companies. When Durant wanted to explore business opportunities that conflicted with Nike's interests, he faced potential penalties worth millions. The eventual resolution required expensive legal negotiations and contract modifications that consumed significant time and money. Technology and cryptocurrency losses, when innovation becomes speculation. The rise of cryptocurrency and technology investments has created a new category of NBA financial disasters. Players attracted to the potential for massive returns often invest in digital assets and tech startups without understanding the extreme volatility and risk involved. Several NBA players lost significant money in the FTX cryptocurrency exchange collapse. While specific player losses aren't publicly disclosed, the endorsement deals and investment relationships suggest millions were lost when FTX filed for bankruptcy. Players who promoted the platform faced not only direct financial losses, but potential legal liability for promoting what regulators later determined was a fraudulent operation. The appeal of cryptocurrency for professional athletes is understandable. The potential for massive returns, the perception of being early to new technology, and the marketing around digital assets as the future of finance attracts players looking to multiply their wealth quickly. However, the extreme volatility means players can lose millions in days or hours as markets fluctuate. NFT investments have created similar problems. Players who spent hundreds of thousands on digital collectibles watched their investments become worthless as the NFT market collapsed. The combination of FOMO, fear of missing out, peer pressure from other investors, and aggressive marketing from NFT companies led many players to invest more than they could afford to lose in speculative digital assets. Technology startup investments have been equally problematic. Players attracted to early-stage tech companies often lack the expertise to evaluate business models, market potential, or management teams. The failure rate for startups is extraordinarily high, and players who invest significant portions of their wealth in early-stage companies often lose everything when the businesses fail. Health and insurance disasters, when bodies break down and coverage runs out. Professional basketball takes an enormous physical toll, and the long-term health consequences have created financial disasters for players who didn't adequately plan for post-career medical expenses. While players receive excellent healthcare during their careers, the transition to retirement often exposes gaps in coverage that can cost millions over a lifetime. Chronic pain from basketball injuries often requires ongoing treatment that can cost hundreds of thousands annually. Joint replacements, spine surgeries, and pain management treatments aren't always covered by standard health insurance, especially experimental or cutting-edge procedures that former players need to maintain quality of life. The opioid crisis hit retired NBA players particularly hard. Players who develop dependencies on pain medications during their careers face not only health consequences, but financial disasters when they needed expensive addiction treatment. Rehabilitation programs, ongoing therapy, and medical supervision can cost $100,000 plus annually, and many insurance plans provide limited coverage for addiction treatment. Mental health issues, particularly depression and anxiety related to career transitions, create additional financial burdens. Former players often struggle with identity issues and purpose after retirement, leading to expensive therapy, counseling, and sometimes psychiatric treatment. The stigma around mental health in professional sports means many players don't seek help until problems become severe and expensive to treat. Long-term disability insurance becomes crucial for NBA players, but many don't purchase adequate coverage or don't understand the exclusions and limitations in their policies. Players who suffer career-ending injuries sometimes discover their disability coverage is insufficient to maintain their lifestyle, or that policy exclusions prevent them from collecting benefits they expected. Estate planning failures. When death creates financial disasters for families. Finally, estate planning failures have created financial disasters that extend beyond the players themselves to devastate their families. The sudden wealth that NBA players accumulate often isn't protected by proper estate planning, leaving families vulnerable to massive tax bills and legal battles when players die unexpectedly. The estate tax implications for NBA players can be devastating. Without proper planning, estates worth more than $12.92 million 2023 exemption face federal estate taxes of up to 40%. State estate taxes can add additional burdens, and the combination can force families to sell assets quickly to pay tax bills, often at unfavorable prices. Kobe Bryant's estate faced complex valuation issues related to his business ventures and intellectual property rights. While Bryant had estate planning in place, the tragic nature of his death and the complexity of valuing his ongoing business interests created challenges for his family. The lesson for other players is that estate planning must account for the unique assets and income streams that professional athletes accumulate. Life insurance becomes crucial for NBA players, but many don't purchase adequate coverage or structure policies correctly. Players who maintain expensive lifestyles need life insurance coverage that can replace their earning capacity and pay estate taxes without forcing families to liquidate assets. However, the high net worth of successful players means they need sophisticated insurance strategies that go beyond simple term life policies. Business succession planning presents additional challenges for players with ongoing ventures. Players who own restaurants, real estate companies, or other businesses need plans for transferring ownership if they die unexpectedly. Without proper succession planning, profitable businesses can quickly become worthless if key management dies or becomes incapacitated. The ultimate lesson: wealth protection is a full-time job. The comprehensive nature of NBA financial disasters reveals the ultimate truth. Earning millions playing basketball is actually the easy part. Keeping those millions requires sophisticated knowledge across dozens of complex areas, including investments, taxes, insurance, estate planning, contract negotiation, business management, and international finance. Every financial disaster we've discussed was preventable with proper education, competent advisors, and disciplined decision-making. However, the combination of sudden wealth, limited financial education, and the unique pressures facing professional athletes creates perfect conditions for financial destruction. The players who successfully navigate these challenges treat wealth management as seriously as they treated basketball. They invest in education, surround themselves with competent professionals, and make conservative decisions that prioritize preservation over growth. Most importantly, they understand that financial security isn't about how much you earn, it's about how much you keep and how well you protect it. For current and future NBA players, the message is clear: your financial game needs the same dedication, practice, and professional coaching as your basketball game. The stakes are just as high, the competition is just as fierce, and the consequences of poor performance can be just as devastating. Master both games, and you can secure not just your own future, but generational wealth for your family. Fail at the financial game, and even $200 million in career earnings won't be enough to avoid becoming another cautionary tale.